Good evening, folks, family, friends, loved ones, enemies, frenemies, wizards, witches, muggles, mudbloods, people of Middle Earth to another episode of Disguise Coverage, part of the Cover One Sports Network. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Anthony Prohaska. Find me on the good old Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro, 2 ANT. Give me a follow on the old Twitter, or I always like to give options. As you guys know, if follows aren't your thing, that's fine. I'll gladly take the deed to your house. A blood oath pledging like your undying allegiance and loyalty to me at all times. I'm also down for Rumpelstiltskin type things. Like if you want to promise me your firstborn kid, like that can get a little messy. It has in the past. But I like to keep everyone's options open, because I don't like to be too, narrow-minded or narrow focused when it comes to those things. Really excited for tonight's episode. The Bills got back on track a little bit last week against the New York Jets. They looked pretty good in that victory after coming off a crushing defeat to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the game before. And we're going to talk about some of the things that the Bills did in that game against the Jets in the back half of this episode. We're going to talk about the addition of Matt Breida and what he means to this Buffalo Bills offense and the potential for him going forward. We are going to talk about the importance of adaptability and what the Buffalo Bills showed in that game against the Jets and what that means for their sustainability going forward in terms of their performance and the positives that we can take away from that game, regardless of if the Jets are a bad team or not, which they look to be like they are. We're going to talk about several of those things. And in the front half of this episode, I'm going to bring on a guest who is pretty awesome, who we set some things up and chopped it up offline and on the old Twitter in the past couple days to set this up. So I'm going to bring him to the stream right now, Mr. Rashaad McGinnis of the Blue Stable podcast, which I think that I'm always down for super clever names. And I just think the logo and the Blue Stable and the whole horse thing, Colts thing, I think it's some really good stuff. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. And I always like to let everybody plug their stuff at the end, but I think it might be good to do it at the beginning. So tell the good people about yourself, what you do, what you like, who you are, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, man, I'm Rashaad McGinnis. I'm on Twitter at King of Colts. I feel like that name's going to get me in trouble one day with the Colts organization, but I happen to stay off the radar so far, so that's pretty good.
Just start posting a whole bunch of pictures of like horses and stuff and be like, nah, it's not a Colts account. I just like horses and stuff. That's
a good idea. I heard your nickname was Workhorse. Is that it?
It is. That's true. It's in my Twitter bio. I'm on, so I do this show for Cover One. Mm-hmm. I'm also on the post-game show. I also do the film room on Tuesday nights, and then I also do a fantasy show for this network. So I do a lot.
Oh, it's pretty cool.
So I'm a workhorse, which I guess falls into the Colt type of family. So I guess we're kind of brothers in that way.
Yep, because I do this podcast. I also have another podcast that I do that I won't plug because it's a side of me that's not real professional, and we're going to try to keep this as professional as possible. So, yeah, man, hopefully some of my Colts fam drop in here. I've been a Colts fan my whole life, pretty much. I'm from New Orleans. Okay. I'm a postal worker. That's what they say. I can't say mailman anymore. So I've been a mailman for 10 years now. Nice. Probably telling my age a little bit, but yeah, man, it's awesome. I've been a Colts fan since they drafted Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk actually grew up about 5 minutes from where I live. Yeah, Marshall Faulk, Peyton Manning's another New Orleans kid. Reggie Wayne's another New Orleans guy. Joseph Adai is right up the road in Baton Rouge.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he went to LSU.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, so I got a question off of that then. So then, how gutted were you when the Colts traded Marshall Faulk away?
Extremely gutted. And the irony, that moment probably would be the number one worst feeling until the Colts lost the Super Bowl to the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, Manning throws that pick six.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
No, were you conflicted at all? So that's another question I have too. So then, growing up where you grew, how come you're not a Saints fan? How did you gravitate towards the Colts?
It's weird because my dad was actually a Seahawks fan. He never liked the Saints for some odd reason. He gave me the story several different times, but it was always a different story. He had his own individual reasons why he didn't like the Saints. So I was anti-Saints, when I came up. And I gravitated towards the Colts, man. I don't know what it was. Jim Harbaugh was definitely not a selling point. And I went through a lot of pain until Peyton Manning came. And once Peyton Manning got there, because I'm only 33, so it's not like I don't want to sound ancient to you guys, but I'm only 33. Jim Harbaugh era was my first era as a Colts fan. I was about 7, 8 in that age range, and once Peyton got there in '98, man, things changed forever for me. And I've just been following the Colts ever since then. I joined the Blue Stable. We created the Blue Stable actually almost 6 months ago, right before this season. We was a part of another network, and that things didn't work out with that network. So we decided to create our own thing, and launch our website, www.thebluestable.com, for anybody that's interested. And there's written articles, there's YouTube shows, there's the podcast, anything that you're interested in that's Colts related. I know that's probably not a good selling point in here, especially since we're going to be enemies in the next 3 days. But I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit more about myself.
No, you'll get some people who will come to it. I always encourage, Bills fans just in general to keep tabs kind of like on your enemies. I think you should always have somebody or a couple people for every single team that you can go to and stay up on what they're doing and, have insight to the team in terms of what's going on for scheme and personnel and all that. So I recommend everybody give you a follow. And what you and the rest of the crew at the Blue Stable do is super legit. And I wouldn't have had you on the show if it wasn't legit. So I'm pumped. I'm not as we were talking offline a bit. I'm not as pumped for this game because I am a bit nervous. I mean, I'm always growing up as a Bills fan. I'm also a Boston Red Sox fan. And even though the Red Sox have won some World Series, I'm still greatly traumatized from the history I've learned of growing up and things like the 2003 ALCS against the Yankees. I will never feel secure in anything. The Bills can be up 50-0 with 5 minutes in the fourth. The Red Sox could be up 20-0 with 2 outs in the ninth. And if someone's like, dude, they're going to win, I'll be like, no, shut up. Do not do that. I'm never secure in anything. And so we come into this game, this Bills Colts matchup. Bills had a rough loss against the Jags a couple of weeks ago. Then they look really good against the Jets. The Colts have had this weird up and down season. They start off with, before the season even gets going, Quentin Nelson goes down with like the exact same injury that Carson Wentz has. And they don't look very good. And they have a couple really close losses. They have some losses that you and I were talking about against Tennessee and Baltimore that they should have beaten Baltimore. They very easily could have beaten Tennessee. But you've got this team that is pretty much the same squad minus Phillip Rivers from last year and a couple good additions like Kwity Paye, who we're going to talk about tonight. But this was a team last year in the playoffs that gave the Bills a good run for their money. And I have no problem saying that I thought the Colts outplayed the Bills in that game last year. The Bills found a way to win. There were a couple of plays that really turned the tide in favor of the Bills. But this was a game before the season started when we were doing predictions. I had this game initially pegged as a loss for the Buffalo Bills. I liked the Colts a lot. I thought they were a good team coming into the year. They come into this game up and down. We see some good Colts. We see some bad Colts. We've seen consistency. I guess before we get into it in this run of show here, give me the current status of the Indianapolis Colts. Like, where are they right now? What's the level of belief in this team? What do you think they could be? Is it going to continue to be an up and down ride, or do you think they're starting to, hit their stride a little bit? No pun intended for horse stuff there for stride. Do you think they're starting to hit their stride and they're kind of on the uptick a little bit?
It feels almost exactly like it felt before week 1. Now that we're back to 500, It seems like we're back to square one, man. I'm still not sold on this team playing against teams above 500. I don't know if you know the stat, but we're 0-8 against the last 8 playoff teams that we've played.
Oh, I did not know that. Good stat.
Yeah, including the Buffalo Bills. So I'm just not sold on it, man. One thing I can say about this team, they don't lose to teams that they shouldn't lose to. Like, that's one thing. They make sure that they beat the bottom feeders. We beat Jacksonville. We beat the Jets. Who else did we beat? We beat the 49ers, who looked really good, surprisingly, Sunday.
I don't know. The Niners are a weird team like that, too. You're like, well, the Niners are done. And then they pull a win out like they did against the Rams. And you're like, are the Niners better than we think? Like, they're a weird team, too. They're like the NFC version of the Colts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we beat the Dolphins, of course. Who doesn't beat the Dolphins? But Bills fans should like that jab.
A little bit. I liked it, and I know people wanted it too. Yeah, I liked it.
But yeah, man, we just state of uncertainty. We've been waiting to get these big type of games. We played the Rams early in the season, and Carson Wentz, and we was in that game up until the last drive, but Carson Wentz sprained both of his ankles. How ironic. I've never seen a guy sprain both of his ankles in the same game. But yeah, anyway, that's what happens. That's the Aaron Donald effect. That's what we call it.
That's very fair.
But this team is still unproven, and we've been looking forward to this Buffalo Bills game. Not to say it's like we're angry about what happened in the playoffs, because we never looked at ourselves as well. I didn't look at us as serious contenders last year until we closed that revolving door at quarterback. I knew this team was never going to make a serious playoff run. And now I feel like maybe we have a guy, but Carson's out there searching for that statement win, man. And I know we're going to get into Carson a little bit later, so I won't go too far into detail there. But there's still a lot in the air, and nobody's really sold on this Colts team right now. Not saying they're good, not saying they're bad, but a lot is still up in the air.
Okay. I like how you did a little foreshadowing there with Carson Wentz. We are going to get into him and some of the things with that. So let's start with, we will start on the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk some formations and tendencies of this Colts offense. I think a lot of Bills fans and people in general are familiar with the major players on the Colts offense, but from an overall like scheme standpoint and with the way they want to attack defenses, what should we expect to see this Sunday from the Colts offense?
Well, the Colts excel on first drives of games. What they call the first 15 that Frank Reich schemes up before the game. Yep. He excels at that, man. He likes to run a lot of 11 personnel right out of the gate, and sometimes in short yard situations he goes to a little 12, and we put Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor in at the same time to kind of try to keep the defense off balance. Nyheim Hines is our gadget player. For the people that don't know, he's our backup running back that we line up.
Nyheim Hines.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I love just his style. Like, he's such an awesome – when you have a horse like Taylor – no Colts pun intended again. But what you got to do
You're
like
on the
Taylor –
road today.
Yeah, I'm not even – I swear I'm not – it's not on purpose. When you got to do like Taylor at the one, and then you have such a sweet, versatile back like Hines who can really go. And that's not even considering like Marlon Mack is still scratched for like every game. Like, you guys got a whole bunch of good running backs in the stable there. All right, that one was on purpose. Keep going talking about that.
Okay, yeah. So that's how we line up. We like to use a lot of those two guys on the field at the same time. There's no true fullback in this system, so you guys won't see any of that. We'll use a lot of tight ends. We use up to 3 tight ends on the field at one time. So short yard situations, expect for us to pound the rock. You get a little bit of RPO in that first drive. If we decide to go up tempo, that's a quick no huddle play that we like to run. We go RPO, look for the short pass. Phillip Rivers loves to pull the ball out. I say Phillip Rivers, Jesus Christ. Carson Wentz loves to pull the ball out and make that quick throw, that hot read to Michael Pittman, a guy who's on the ascension that I'm sure we'll get to later. But yeah, a lot of quick rhythm stuff that we do on the first 15. And we typically score on those drives, whether it's a field goal or it's a touchdown. I remember last year in the playoff game, we took the ball downfield and we got to you guys' side of the field, but we weren't able to punch it in. We pinned you guys deep. You guys went 3 and out, and then I believe we kicked the field goal, and that's how the game started. And we'll see success moving the ball early. I'm sure about that, but it's beyond the first 15 is what I'm afraid of with this Buffalo Bills defense.
Oh, very interesting part with that first 15. Yeah, the beginning of games and like how coaches script things up is a really understated and not talked about thing in today's NFL. I wanted to pull this for you because you have a question here in the chat. Jason, who's a regular watcher of the show, he wanted to know what your opinion is of Frank Reich.
I love the guy. Absolutely love everything he stands for off of the field as far as his mentality and his beliefs and everything. On the field, I believe he's one of the best offensive minds, up top 10. I won't say top 5 or anything like that, but when it comes to scheming up things and getting certain guys open, I think he's one of the best, up there with the Shanahans and the McVays and Dable. I love Dable too as well. But yeah, I love Frank Reich as far as offensive side of the ball. Sometimes it worries me that he doesn't get involved with the defensive side of the ball enough, that he kind of lets Eberflus do his own thing, and that's another podcast for another day that we'll discuss. But yeah, that would be the only concern that I have. But he's a player's coach, man, and hopefully the people get to see on Hard Knocks when he opens up and shows a little bit of his personality on there. People get a true feel for the type of guy he is and the type of offensive mind he is.
Awesome. We love Frank Reich in Buffalo for what he did, as the backup QB for so long, and that comeback against the Oilers. Yeah, he's definitely like a hero here. So you started mentioning some of the things about this Colts offense, and we'll go into some of the players here now. I want to give some general overall stats here, raw stats for the Colts offense. They're 12th in yards per game with 363 yards per game. For reference, the Bills are 5th at 401. They're 22nd in passing yards per game at 227. The Bills are 6th with 279. The Colts are 6th in rushing yards per game with 136.3. The Bills are 10th at 121.9, but the Bills overall aren't a successful running team until recently. And then the Colts are 8th in points per game at 26.8, and the Bills are 2nd at 31.1. But they have a stud on this offense, Mr. Jonathan Taylor. I started to write down some stats, right? And I was looking at a whole bunch of stuff, guys, a whole bunch of different sites. And then I just kept coming across more and more impressive stats, or stats that he's in the top 3 for running back. So here we go. So there's a lot. So he's 3rd in attempts with 161. He's tied for 1st in rushing yards with 937, which crazy. He's tied with Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry has missed all this time, and he's still tied for 1st, which is crazy for Henry. Right. Jonathan Taylor is averaging 5.8 yards per carry. He's 3rd in rushing touchdowns with 9. He's run for 54 first downs. He's 2nd in yards after contact with 579. 579 yards after contact. He's had 99. This is very interesting and something I want to get into as well. He's had 99 zone runs, 57 gap runs, showing the versatility of that Colts offensive line and how multiple they can be with their scheme. And then versus Jacksonville, he became only the 4th player since 1950 to have 100+ scrimmage yards and a rushing touchdown in 7 straight games. Also on the year, he's got 29 catches for 303 yards and a touchdown. So Jonathan Taylor is really good. And how much does this offense run through him? Is it as simple as if Jonathan Taylor's going, this offense is going? Is he really the key to everything on offense for them?
He's the engine. To put it quite plain and simple, he's the engine. When he doesn't get the amount of touch, he's so much so the engine. The Colts Nation have a beef with Frank Reich saying he's not getting the ball enough. And just like you said, he's 3rd in attempts in the NFL.
Yeah. And everybody's just more.
Yeah. That's how much we rely on Jonathan Taylor. He makes this offense go. The play action, which is a huge part of our offense, is totally built on him, which I found interesting when I was looking up you guys, that play action is not predicated on the run game at all. I'm sorry. There's just human.
Yep. You can be successful with play action without running the ball. Very true.
And I think it's a human element that happens to the linebackers and the safeties, man. If you see that fake, you react to that fake. I'm sorry. No matter how much success, it's human nature. But not to get off task.
No, you can feel free. Go ahead.
Because I noticed that when I was watching you guys, and I thought that was extremely interesting. I seen Josh Allen had over 300 yards off of play action this past Sunday. I thought that was freaking ridiculous.
We went super hard with it. The first drive, 5 plays, 70-something yards, touchdown. Or no, 58 yards, touchdown. Multiple plays on that drive were play action. They went more play action than they did actual runs for their first couple of series. But the defense kept, coming up. I mean, granted, some of their personnel and formations and alignments were sucking them in. But yeah, you can. Obviously, it helps if you have a run game and increases that threat. But yeah, just doing that action, especially from under center, the whole dropping, turning your back to the defense and they can't see what's going on in front of you or where the ball is and what you're doing. Yeah, that's a great point by you. Well done.
Yeah, man. First play of the game against the Jets, the Jags. I'm sorry, the Jags last Sunday. 11 personnel come out, simple gap run. Jonathan Taylor hits the gap, 38 yards, out the gate. It's out the gate, very first play, man. And it's ridiculous the type of things he do in space. The way he's able to make these guys miss in the hole is crazy. I believe the 2 fastest highest miles per hour that's been recorded this year is both Jonathan Taylor, one at 22 miles per hour and one at 21 miles per hour. He has like 3 runs over 70 yards this season alone.
Yeah, he's got the longest run of the year at 83 yards.
Yeah, he's ridiculous. And he took a pass 77 yards, a swing pass, I believe. He's a stud, man. And I know the Bills are pretty stout against the run. And it worries me. It scares me because so much of our bread and butter is built off this run game and built off of the play action. So I'm afraid that if Jonathan Taylor doesn't get going, then it may be a long day for the Indianapolis Colts, but sitting at 937 yards, I'm confident he'll at least get to 1,000 before the end of this game. But he's going to need a lot more than that if we're going to contend in this game, man, because you guys defense is pretty tough. I read some stats on you guys. Y'all fill up the stat sheet in many categories, I say.
Yeah, a little bit. Leading the league in turnovers, first in DVOA, first in defensive DVOA against the pass, third in the rush, lowest points per game allowed. A lot of positive metrics for the Bills defense. But so it's funny that you're like worried about how well can he do. I'm also worried about that from that other side, right? The Bills, especially on the interior, this past week, the Jets got him a little bit on some runs. They got washed out a little bit. Star Lotulelei was a late scratch due to COVID reasons. He's such a key cog in the interior of that defense in terms of stopping the run. They called up another defensive tackle in Brandon Bryant, but they didn't play him. So they ended up going with like 6 defensive ends and 3 defensive tackles, but some of their defensive ends can come inside like F.A. Obata. So they were like doing more NASCAR speed rush type packages with guys who can also hold their own in the run. But against the Colts, not that the Jets offensive line is bad. They got some dudes, but with the squad that the Colts have up front on the offensive line, they're just such a good group. And to go back to that aspect from Taylor, like I mentioned earlier, 99 zone runs, 57 gap. So many teams nowadays are so zone dependent on the run game, or when it comes to the run game for their offense. And the Colts are able to just kind of do whatever they want at points. They can run powers and they can run traps. Oh, and when you're running a trap with Quentin Nelson as that pulling guard, and then Kelly's washing someone down and Taylor just hits that hole, like, it's a tough thing to contend with. I 1000% think that is the key to this game of who wins that battle between Jonathan Taylor and the Colts offensive line against the Bills defense and defensive line. And then there's also more layers onto it for the Bills with, Tremaine Edmonds missed last week's game with an injury. Matt Milano was in a red non-contact jersey at practice today. So there's all these extra layers. Exactly. Yeah, I made that noise when I saw it, and that was not pleased. And also another little fun stat for Jonathan Taylor. He also leads the NFL in the amount of rushes of 10 or more yards. So he's at 24 runs of 10 or more yards. Like, he's almost at the top of the pops for everything. Yeah. And against the defense that has been gouged a little bit at times, that is 1,000% a huge key to this game. I am much like I was in the playoff game last year. I thought if Jonathan Taylor could get going, we saw what he did down the stretch last year for the Colts in the regular season where he was just crushing it week after week. Such a huge key for this game. We're going to talk about Carson Wentz in a minute. I want to stay on the offensive line just because we started talking about it a little bit there. I mentioned at the beginning, this line was banged up coming into the year, especially with Quentin Nelson, because Anthony Costanzo doesn't come back. But this is a line that I thought, especially last year, granted they're different, but they were right up there with anybody in terms of like the best offensive line in the NFL. They can run block, they can pass pro, they can do almost anything that is asked of them. Quentin Nelson is obviously a huge key to that and is the leader in that group. And as Michael mentioned in our chat here, he said Jonathan Taylor's the second best player on the Colts after Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson versus Ed Oliver is going to be a TV event. Yeah, Ed Oliver's look like a stud. Quentin Nelson is a stud. But talk to us a little bit about this offensive line. How healthy are they? How are they playing? And, who are the key guys that make them really successful up front?
Oh, man, I know a lot of people point to Quentin Nelson, but I actually go to Ryan Kelly as an unsung hero on this offensive line. Exactly. As the center, you know how important he is to getting guys allocated and lined up and making all the checks and making reads, pointing out different things he see along on the defensive side of the ball. Ryan Kelly is a stud, man. I love him to death. When it comes to Braden Smith, he's a very underrated right tackle. He got paid this offseason, but he hasn't been healthy, man. He hasn't been healthy. I believe he's been back 3 games now. That was the first time this offensive line actually got to play together healthy because they started week 1. Braden went down in week 1, but Eric Fisher didn't play week 1. He didn't come till week 2. Yeah, dealing with the coming off an Achilles injury. He hasn't quite been himself, but they're still brutal in the run game. These 5 guys, they get the job done. We're rotating our right guard right now, Mark Lewinsky with Chris Reed, not because Mark Lewinsky is not playing well enough, but because Chris Reed filled in for Quentin Nelson when he was out with his injury, and he's just one of those guys we haven't been able to take off the field now that we put him on. So we have him and Mark Lewinsky rotating over there at right guard. Center Ryan Kelly, like I spoke on, and Eric Fisher at left tackle. The offensive line is really playing well in the run game. As far as, like you say, in zone runs, we're pulling guys, or dual runs, when we combo blocking, we're knocking guys off of the ball, off of the line of scrimmage, and it's been good. Now, pass protection, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good. The right tackle and the left tackle have struggled with speed rushers, with elite speed rushers, I should say that, or guys that really specialize in speed to power type rushes. So that's one thing that we have to get cleaned up. The offensive line struggled last week, I think, against Jacksonville. They punished Jacksonville in the first quarter. We ran Jonathan Taylor at 93 yards in a touchdown at the end of the first quarter. So we expected him to go for something ridiculous. He finished the game with only 113. I'm sorry. So Jacksonville did adjust, and they looked a lot like the Jacksonville defense that you guys saw the week before, but we were unable to throw the ball. Carson Wentz had no time. Our blitz pickup was disappointing. Carson wasn't hitting his hot reads. The offensive line was failing to realize who was coming. The running backs that was helping in protection wasn't hitting the proper guy. We allowed free rushes several times. So that's something we have to get cleaned up in pass protection, blitz pickup. But in the run game, as we were speaking about, they're washing guys. Like, they're washing guys.
It's funny that you mentioned that, the pass protection aspect, because I knew one of the stats I'm about to give out, but I didn't know the other. So they're 29th in pass blocking efficiency, which obviously is not good. And then Carson Wentz, he has the second most dropbacks in the NFL under pressure this year, which is just, especially coming from Philly, right? So I don't want to give him a pass for what happened in Philly, but like, anybody who played offensive line for Philly the last 2 years was just like cursed. They would play one snap and they'd go down and they were hurt. He just never had time. Anytime whether he was under center, shotgun, a constant barrage of pressure and dudes in his face, he just never had time. And he goes to Indianapolis and you're thinking, okay, reunion with Frank Reich. Okay, this offensive line. All right. And the line keeps doing their thing in the run game. But yeah, they've struggled a little bit in pass protection. And it's interesting that you mentioned what's given the tackles trouble with the speed rush kind of guys, because the Bills don't really have that. The Bills are more technique and compress the pocket across the line of scrimmage, even on the outside as well. Like their first round pick, Gregory Rousseau, who's played well, he's not a speed guy. He's a compress the pocket, use size and length type of guy. So I'm very interested to see how the Colts offensive line, obviously, number one is the run blocking piece. What do the Bills do against the run? And again, defending Jonathan Taylor. But two, against an offensive line that has struggled in pass protection a little bit, but given what they've struggled with, the fact that the Bills don't have it, we get a comment there from Spin saying Jerry Hughes is the speed rusher. Jerry Hughes is probably our speed rusher, him and Mario Addison, but they're not like, you're not looking at them as like, oh man, those guys have some crazy burst and they're going to get you off the edge. So I'm interested to see what the Bills can do against that offensive line and if they can affect Carson Wentz. And that's
Jerry Hughes, that name sounds familiar.
Oh, I think he maybe used to be. That's like one of the, I mean, not for you guys, but for like, that's one of the most lopsided trades in history. And it's funny, I like Kelvin Shepherd at LSU, dude. I liked him at LSU. I was hoping he could be something with the Bills. We traded him and I was like, all right, I knew who he was. I knew him from TCU. I knew he hadn't caught on in Indy. And just what a turnaround. He's become a staple on this team.
Almost instantly.
And a model of consistency. Everybody always likes to throw out the sack numbers, but his pressures are always up there, even when he's not getting sacks. He's still, right now, in my mind, the best pass rusher on this Bills team. Ed Oliver's had a bunch of really good penetration, but from an edge perspective, he's still number one in tops for us. He does so many things that go unnoticed. And yeah, it's crazy that we just traded away. And Kelvin Shepherd's not even in the league anymore, too. I think he's a coach somewhere doing something. Yeah, just a crazy trade. I'm sorry.
One more point on you guys' defensive line, because I love this guy and I always want to give the opportunity to say something about him. Gregory Rousseau, man. I know people were projecting him to be at a defensive end in a 4-3 type of setting, and I never liked him in that role.
Okay.
I thought he would be better in a 3-4. Okay. You know, I thought he would be better with his length and his size. He project really well at that position. My brother, my older brother's a defensive line coach for the Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Nice humble brag there. You just kind of throw that out there.
So he had me just watching countless amount of film on this incoming draft class defensive lineman, and I liked Gregory Rousseau. It's just when I rank people, when I was ranking guys, I was ranking them based on fit with the coach. So that's why he never was high on my list or anything, and I never really got a chance to talk about him too much, but because most of the Colts fans only want to hear about things that's related to the Colts. So. But I thought he would be great in Buffalo with the guys that he's playing alongside with, and it looked like he's paying off for you guys early.
It's funny that you say that, because I wasn't disappointed with the Rousseau pick, but I had a couple of guys ahead of him, and I loved. Well, he was Jason Oweh at the time, but Odafe Oweh in Baltimore, who's having a really good year. I liked him a lot out of Penn State, but what I wanted to happen, and it came close. I was just hoping that Kwity Paye was going to fall. He kept dropping and dropping. And I was like, oh my God, is Kwity Paye going to come? Are we going to get Kwity Paye? Like, I loved him at Michigan. I loved his speed to power. I loved his technique. I loved his hand usage. I just thought he was my number one edge rusher. I didn't include Micah Parsons in that category. I thought he was more off-ball linebacker, even though Dallas is using him in a ton of ways this year, including edge pressure, and he's killing it. I think it's him, Paye, and Oweh in terms of like rookie leaders in pressures or some stat like that. I saw it today and I forgot about it, but Parsons has been killing it. I loved Kwity Paye. We're going to talk about him on the defensive side of the ball, but it's funny that you really liked Rousseau, because I was just sitting there. We did a live stream of night 1 and night 2 of the draft, and I was just sitting here with two of the other guys from Cover 1, and we were all just like, Kwity Paye. Every time somebody wouldn't take Kwity Paye, like we just kept getting more excited. I also wanted Greg Newsome, the corner from Northwestern, who went to the Browns. Yeah. Those are my two big hopes. And then the Colts took Paye and the Browns took Newsome. And I was like, well, this first round sucks, and I don't want to do the show anymore. Yeah, but that was a huge hope for me that Paye was going to drop. But yeah, Rousseau has looked good. It's funny that you mentioned the 3-4 stuff too, because the Bills have done a lot this year, a lot of simulated pressures and a lot of creepers, and they're dropping everyone across the defensive line. Brian Baldinger put out a really good clip, maybe like an hour or so before the show started, of the Bills are showing like a 6-man pressure, and they end up bringing Klein and Milano, and then they drop Rousseau and Jerry Hughes, and Jerry Hughes takes the running back out of the backfield, covers him up the field. Mike White throws an incompletion. They've been doing things like that nonstop, dropping the defensive tackles. Vernon Butler's been in coverage. Ed Oliver's been in coverage. But Gregory Rousseau has been in coverage a decent amount, and he's showing well out there. He's got better movement and coverage than I thought. And the length, we talk about it in the pass rush, but his length is really showing up when he does drop in coverage, because he's such a huge target. It's like he's a center clogging the lane in basketball. Like, how are you, if dude's got his hands out or up, like where are you putting that ball? Yeah. And he's also using his length and run support. So he's done well for us. I do love Kwity, but I'm liking what Rousseau has done. Interesting that we're very similar in this. Very interesting that you. That's like weird. Yeah. Yeah. Right. What are the odds? I was going to save that piece for when we talked about Kwity Paye, but you mentioned that thing with Rousseau, and I was like, oh, I got to get it in. Carson Wentz, mentioned it already. Second most dropbacks under pressure. 20th in completed air yards at 5.7. For reference, for Bills fans, Josh Allen is 4th at 6.9. Carson Wentz is 21st in intended air yards per throw at 7.8. Josh is 6th at 8.8. Here's a fun stat, though, that I did not anticipate thinking of coming into this game. Carson Wentz has 17 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. And 2 of those interceptions came against the Tennessee Titans. Granted, they were 2 horrible interceptions, 2 god-awful, terrible interceptions. Everybody in Buffalo was rooting for the Colts because we wanted Tennessee to lose, because we won seed, and because we lost to Tennessee. We were doing the post-game show, and people were just all in the comments going, "Oh, Wentz threw another pick," and they were just so mad. But you look at some of those numbers, especially the touchdown to interception ratio, you see some of the throws that he's making. You understand the inconsistencies in the offensive line play, all of this stuff. What's the deal with Carson Wentz? Has he been better than expected? What you expected? Is he playing well? Is he playing poor? Is he to blame? Give us the kind of status update on Carson Wentz in terms of where he is and what he is right now for this Colts team.
Carson Wentz has exceeded my expectations thus far. He has been playing well. He does have those couple of boneheaded plays. He's going to give you a defense opportunity, a very opportunistic defense that I know you guys have. It's just like ours, actually. You know, our defense is top 2 in takeaways.
Yes, you're only second to us.
Exactly. Wild, exactly. Yeah. So he's going to give that defense opportunities maybe 2 or 3 times in this game. Whether y'all capitalize is to be seen. But he's going to make some great plays. Some plays. What Carson gets in trouble at is the same thing you love him for. You know, he's a big guy. He's mobile. He breaks out of tackles and breaks out of sacks and throws the ball. Sometimes, though, that's when his technique gets sloppy. He doesn't set his feet, doesn't square his shoulders, you know, and he throws the ball off balance, off platform, and sometimes it's a terrible decision. And then sometimes it's a 50-yard touchdown. It's going to be those type of plays. You're going to have to live and die with that. The reason I'm so good with it is because watching Phillip Rivers, who was basically a robot, a short yardage robot for a year, I mean, I loved him because he always knew exactly where to go at with the football, the right reads to make, and he was very safe in that stage of his career, which was ironic because Phillip was a gunslinger for a lot of his career. But as he aged, he got pretty safe. You know, he was awesome with quick game, and we had a running back like Jonathan Taylor that he could feed the ball to, so that was perfect. Seeing Carson Wentz, polar opposite. Quick game, he struggles from time to time, may miss a guy, may miss a read. But as far as pushing the ball down the field, he has excelled so far this season. I believe the Colts have drew the most defensive pass interference calls of 20 yards or more. Yes, that is a stat, folks.
That's
I know
awesome.
it doesn't sound like
a great stat. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what he has excelled at. He's been throwing one-on-one deep balls. Whenever he sees the guys one-on-one, he's going to take that shot. I know you guys have a great secondary. Love Trey White. I also think you guys have the best safety tandem in the league.
Yes, let them know. Nobody talks about him. Nobody.
And it's so weird that they don't get the type of coverage. Well, I just saw Poyer, I believe, on the Pat McAfee show. Another Bills Colts reference. Yeah, I think I just saw him on there a couple of days ago. But yeah, I love you guys' safety. I love Trey White, another LSU guy, of course. Yep. So we'll see, man. Carson Wentz is definitely going to test those guys and definitely going to give them a chance to make a play. But I think overall, when you look at 17 touchdowns, 18 if you include rushing, 3 interceptions, a couple of fumbles, but nothing out of control. He's kept us in every game except that horrible stretch he had in that Tennessee game, that 4-quarter pick and then that pick in overtime. It was just something that you absolutely can't have. The only other pick of the season was a shovel pass he did on the 2-yard line of Jack Doyle. Aaron Donald just completely blew up Jack Doyle and destroyed that play, and they was able to intercept the ball. So if you can remember all of the picks that your quarterback threw this season vividly, and there was only in 2 games, I think in week 10, you're looking pretty okay.
Yeah, it's funny because people, I think people want to make Wentz to be out. Want to make him out to be worse than he is. I think people just like to make the jokes and the memes and all that kind of stuff. And it's just so crazy how wild his play can be. Even you just take the Tennessee game, right? He throws that horrible pick in the 4th on his own goal line and then drives the Colts right down the field with a very big pass interference call on the defense against the Titans and drives them right down and they score. Like, it's wild. And then against the Jets, last Thursday night or 2 Thursdays ago, I think it was the touchdown to Pittman right before the end of the first half, the one where he caught it and then it got punched out. They reviewed it and it ended up being a touchdown.
Oh yeah, the seam ball. Yeah.
Yes, he
Hmm.
looks off the safety purposefully. He knows exactly where he wants to go. He's looking away, and then steps and fires a bullet right past the linebacker's head, right past the safety.
That was his
Pittman
throw.
doesn't even break stride. I got goosebumps thinking about it. He doesn't even break stride, man. And it's right in his face. It's just such a gorgeous throw. And you're sitting there watching it and you're like, how did this guy try and throw a ball left-handed and make it get picked? Like, but those are the plays you live and die with. And ironically, it's similar to sometimes, Bills fans are accustomed to it. Josh Allen, he makes these plays that you're like, oh my God, that no one else can make that play. What a play. And then he makes another play where you're like, why would you try and make that play? Why would you do that? It's very funny, but with those kind of dudes, it's the give and take and risk reward, and you take it because when they hit, that reward is so big. And, I mentioned Michael Pittman. He's been killing it. He's 9th in the NFL in receiving yards at 729. He's got 76 targets, 61 of those being catchable. He only has 2 drops. And over the last 4 weeks, he has the 4th most receiving yards. He's somebody who I really liked coming out of USC. He's got good genes. His dad was sweet for the Buccaneers for a while on that Super Bowl team with John Gruden. I liked him a lot. I liked his size. I liked his route running. He had good speed for a big dude, ran a good 40 at the combine, showed good agility. He's starting to ascend this year. You mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about him for a little bit. What are you seeing from Michael Pittman this year?
And what's great about Michael Pittman and the irony in this whole thing was that I think the start of this ascension was against you guys in the playoffs. Michael Pittman had a 100-yard game in the playoffs.
He had a really nice screen that he took almost to the house, like for like 30, 40 yards. Yeah.
And when you play with Phillip Rivers, you're going to have to get yak. You're going to have to be a yak monster. I'm sorry. You're not going to get – I don't believe Michael Pittman got thrown one 50-50 ball last season at all just because it just wasn't the way Phillip Rivers was playing football anymore. He didn't have those type of opportunities. But I think this did – playing with Phillip Rivers and getting the ball out quick and becoming – more of a yak receiver, just was something that we didn't think he can do coming out of college. And that was added to his repertoire as far as his skill set as a wide receiver. Now he's going vertical. He's getting the 50-50 balls. He's going up and winning those. He's either winning or he's drawing. Correct. I see Devin just put a comment saying Pittman has the most third down receptions in the league. Yes, he do. I believe it's 54 catches. Yeah, he's ridiculous, man. He's ridiculous.
He's really coming. And I feel like no one – I don't know if it's because of Wentz or because the slow start for the Colts or because the Titans are the sexy story in the AFC and the AFC South, but like I feel like people don't talk about Michael Pittman. Like he's doing really well and he's still super young. He's got like wide receiver 1 potential brewing like right now for the Colts.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we was expecting coming into this next season. I know in the offseason, the Colts had interest in people like Kenny Galladay, Godwin before he was franchised, and Allen Robinson as well before he was franchised. But they didn't expect Pittman to make this jump this fast, I don't think. He's on pace right now for about 1,200 yards, I believe, and he's looking ridiculous, man. And hopefully we can get some of those one-on-one opportunities. I think him and Trey White will be fun, man. Some of the things I see Trey White doing this year, he's passing stuff off the guys and then breaking on secondary receivers. He's playing phenomenal, man. Yeah. I just love everything about his game. I loved him since LSU though, so that's nothing new. But Michael Pittman, I think Michael Pittman's big reason for his ascension is Carson Wentz. We know Carson Wentz favors bigger targets. We saw what he did with Zach Ertz. We saw what he did with Alshon Jeffrey with the Eagles. He has a history, and T.Y. has suffered a little bit because of it. But I think the rise of Michael Pittman is going to shock a lot of people when you get to play these big time games like this game this Sunday,
For sure. I know this comment has a Go Bills at the end, but Heather wanted to say this about you. This guy knows his football, quote unquote. You're getting a lot of love.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it.
And Roman came through to talk about how Michael Pittman is a contested catch god.
50-50, baby.
It's wild. Like obviously love Tre'Davious White, and the stats speak for themselves and the metrics. And I love how you mentioned what he's doing in zone, just his ability to understand, like, nah, I can let number one go. I'm going to jump number two right now and make this play. And just his ability to read what's going on in front of him to the quarterback, read the sets and the drops of the quarterback and the routes of the receivers, run them for him. He's having another great year. But he has in the past, much like Levi Wallace has, the other Bills starting corner, the Bills secondary as a whole, and the corners are the same with this. They're very technically sound, right?
Yeah.
But they're not physically, anything outstanding. Tre'Davious White is one of the best corners in the NFL. He's not the biggest. He's not the strongest. He's not overly fast. He's quicker than he is fast. He's got good enough speed, but he's so technically sound. His feet, his hips, his hands, his mental ability to process and read everything. He's so strong in that regard. But when he has gotten beat, it's by guys that are physically dominant. And Michael Pittman checks that box. He's got size, he's got length, he's strong, he's big, and you add in his ability and his hands. I'm very interested to see how Michael Pittman does against this Bills secondary and in this game because, of all those things I mentioned, he fits the mold of the type of receivers that have given the Bills problems in the past. Because as technically sound as you are, sometimes when dudes are that big or that fast, it's so tough because your technique has to be so on point, because if you're not, you're going to get blown by. Or if you're not, you're going to get mossed. It's easy to get beat against physically dominant guys, whether due to size or speed. So it's tough in that regard. I'm very interested to see how Pittman does. And I know we're running a little bit over time. You still cool to ride out and talk some defense with me?
Oh, man, let's do it.
Beautiful. I'm very excited. So now we're going to switch to the defense. A Colts defense that is 13th in points per game allowed with 23. As we mentioned earlier, the Bills are first at 15 points per game allowed. Second in takeaways for the Colts with 21. The Bills are first with 24. The Colts are also second in turnover differential at plus 11. Bills are first at 14. They are 18th in sacks per game with 2.2. But what's very interesting is they have 5 players with 3 or more sacks, and the Bills only have 2 players with 3 or more sacks. So we've seen some things spread out across the defensive line as a whole. So let's start getting into it with that defense. We'll start like we did for the offense. What are they doing on defense? What kind of coverages do they like to run? What tendencies should we expect to see from this Colts defense? How do we expect them to line up and execute come this Sunday?
Well, we're a cover 3 dominantly team. Like we run cover 3 a lot, much to my my discretion. I won't get into that. My personal gripe with this defense. I'll just keep it straight down the middle for you guys. To be honest, this front 4, we don't blitz a lot. We have been blitzing a little more recently due to our lack of pressure that our front 4 has been generating on its own. When teams play us, they're double teaming DeForest Buckner and forcing the other guys to beat them one-on-one. The defensive line is finally healthy. Kwity Paye was out a couple of weeks, and Frank Reich spoke today and said he's still playing through injury, and the injury that he has is an ankle injury, and I said a lot of guys wouldn't be playing right now. So that speaks to his toughness. He got his first sack last week. I was ecstatic for that. He's leading the league in far as pressures the last 2 weeks, and he's second, I believe, in the NFL in the last 3 weeks. So he's finally turning the corner, man, as a player. PFF had him graded as the highest defensive rookie of the year so far. But I hopefully he can continue to play at this pace, because DeForest Buckner is going to continue to be DeForest Buckner. He has 4.5 sacks. He's leading the team in pressures. He is that guy that's going to garner that type of attention. But the guys on the edge has to step up. We got Daya Obadego back, our second-round pick, who got his first half sack this past game against Trevor Lawrence. It was actually a forced fumble that put the game away when the Jaguars was on their last drive to try to win the game. Who else do we have? We have Taylor Stallworth, a guy who has 3 sacks in the last 2 weeks. He's come on. He's finally getting significant snaps. He hasn't been playing earlier this season, and it's crazy. He has just the same amount of quarterback hits and sacks as he did for his whole career up until this season, which is
awesome.
Yeah, which is crazy. So he's finally breaking out. I think what I would like to see, which they won't do because it's Matt Eberflus, I would like to see 4 down linemen of Kwity Paye, Dio, DeForest Buckner, and somebody like maybe Kamoka Toure, who's our speed guy. He just could never stay healthy though. So that's why we can't find a reason to keep him out there, because he flashes from time to time, but he's just a guy that's just so fragile, much like Paris Campbell, a guy who's a great offensive asset, but he just can't stay healthy, man.
No, he just can't. He's so fast and so electric when he's on the field, but he just can't stay on the field.
And I love him, man. We used him as a second-round pick, and every time I see Terry McLaurin scores, I just think about
that could be Paris Campbell.
that could have been Paris Campbell. But getting back to the defensive line, I would like to see a defensive rotation of Kwity Paye, Taylor Stallworth, DeForest Buckner, and Dio, and I think that's our best forward unit that we can put on the field at one time as far as getting pressure on Josh Allen, because what I saw from Josh Allen in that playoff game was the difference between why you guys took the game and why you guys didn't. Some of the plays that he just made outside of the pocket, once he broke contain. And I always say, when it's two close teams like that, who really has a dude? And Josh Allen is a dude. We didn't have one at the time. We're hoping Carson can become that or prove himself and solidify himself as that. But that was the difference in that playoff game. I agree with you. I think we outplayed you guys, but y'all had a dude and we didn't. And that's sometimes what the NFL comes down to. You got to get yourself a dude one way or another.
That's funny that you mentioned that. That's a perfect segue to the next kind of point I wanted to make. The Bills have offensively, from an offensive line perspective, they've struggled this year at times, and especially against like dudes that are studs, guys that can really go up front. They struggled against Pittsburgh with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt. They handled Washington a little better than I anticipated. But then, you see the Jags game and the other Josh Allen and Smoot really had a lot of success against the Bills. You go to that Tennessee game, Harold Landry looked good. Jeffrey Simmons looked good. Former Colt Nico Autry looked good. He had a nice hit on Josh Allen that led to a pick/fumble type of thing that Byard caught. The Bills have struggled with studs on the defensive line, and Buckner is so good. He was good in San Francisco. He's good again for the Colts. He's such a stud. Darius Leonard is a stud. Got paid like it this offseason. He's a large reason why I think so many Bills fans like to get on Tremaine Edmonds, because in that same draft that the Bills took Tremaine Edmonds in the first round, Fred Warner and Darius Leonard went in later rounds than Tremaine Edmonds, and they're arguably the two best linebackers in the NFL. And again, they got paid like it this past offseason. Leonard is such a stud. He made a lot of plays in that playoff game. DeForest Buckner is a stud. I'm scared from the defensive line perspective of what Buckner can do. As you talked about, Kwity Paye is really coming on strong and starting to make plays. And they got other good supporting cast guys that you mentioned on that defensive line. And the Bills have struggled with their consistency, especially in run blocking, but even pass protection as well, against dudes who can really go and sound schemes and sound players and rotations like the Colts have. And then you have a stud like Darius Leonard on that second level, who's another dude. But one guy I want you to talk about, I had the Colts defense in fantasy last year and the year before. And so I watch a decent amount of Colts games. And every time I watch Colts games, I first noticed his name because it was hard to say. But Bobby Okereke just would always seem to be around the ball and make plays. And his name is super fun to say. It's also very complicated and very hard to say. But he's fifth amongst all linebackers in the NFL in tackles. And he's third in stops. For reference, Darius Leonard is 14th in stops. I mean, maybe it's because there's other studs there and Leonard makes a lot of plays and the defensive line sets the table. But talk about Bobby Okereke, because I feel like he doesn't get a lot of shine either. Maybe it's because his name is so hard to say, but he doesn't get talked about a lot. And he's somebody who I feel like every time I watch a Colts game, I notice him flashing left and right, and I constantly see him doing stuff. How well has he been playing for this Colts defense this year?
Bobby, and it's funny you say that. He actually corrected the way people were saying his last name this season. So it's no longer Okereke, it's Okereke.
Is it really?
Yes, this time.
So he did a Travis Kelce and went Travis Kels?
Yeah, exactly.
It's okay, so it's not Okereke.
Exactly.
I don't like the way that sounds. I'm going to keep saying
I can't even. I know. I just say Okereke from time to time. So you'll probably hear me.
It sounds like carrot cake. I don't like it. Just keep going with Okereke. We recognize, disclaimer, we recognize we're wrong, and his proper pronunciation is Okereke, but we're going to say Okereke because it's funner to say. We like it better and we're more comfortable with it.
For that reason alone, I just let me know when you need me back on the show. I'll come back on anytime, just for that reason alone. Bobby Okereke, though, man, he's a great player, man. This is his first full year as a starter. He was splitting time with Anthony Walker, who's now in Cleveland. A defense that I thought was going to be really good.
Yeah, I don't get it. What's going? I haven't watched enough Browns tape to really know. I know they've been affected with some injuries, but I thought, especially with bringing in Walker and then grabbing Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, getting John Johnson from the Rams, and then Greg Newsome from Northwestern in the draft to go with everything they already had. I didn't think Clowney was amazing, but adding him with Myles Garrett, I was like, okay, they could have, and they just keep getting gashed and they keep getting worked. I thought they could show up maybe a little bit against New England, and instead they made Mac Jones look like Tom Brady, and now we have to listen to everybody talk about how Belichick doesn't need Brady and how Mac Jones is the truth, and I hate it. That's a conversation for another time, which I hate. But yeah, so Walker leaves. We'll go back to Okereke. I can't believe he changed his name. I can't believe it's not Okereke. I'm so upset.
Being a Colts fan, I hate the Patriots, so we can do a podcast separately, just solely on our disgust for the New England Patriots if you want, man. Just let me know. But Bobby Okereke, I'm going to say that with so much disgust every time I say that. But he's been playing phenomenal, man. He's a sideline to sideline type guy. The way he's feeling in the run game, he's solid in pass coverage, and that was the reason he took over the job from Anthony Walker. As much as we loved Anthony Walker as a leader, he's a great locker room guy, and he was awesome in the run game. He couldn't cover, man, and it showed, and it reared his head. Bobby Okereke is the guy that will be tasked with. You'll see him lined up with Dawson Knox from time to time. Okay. You'll see those guys going one-on-one, and they're going to expect Bobby to be able to slow him down, but maybe not stop him completely because I'm reading that question. Thank you.
Clarify. Yeah, he was talking about Okereke. He was like, I've always wondered which way is correct for the pronunciation. You helped.
Well, if you want to be correct, it's Okereke. I'm going to continue to be wrong and say Okereke, no matter how productive he is. And I love his game, man. He is a good young linebacker in this league. I was high on him ever since I seen him. He was the highest PFF graded linebacker his rookie season. And he was in with a lot of studs that year, and I was shocked because I just hadn't watched much of him at Stanford, even though I'm a die-hard USC fan. Shameless plug, by the way. But nice. Well, I didn't see him much at Stanford. I didn't get a chance to watch him. So when he came, I was really excited to see how fast he had shot up the table. And hopefully, now that someone like you have noticed, hopefully other people are taking notice as well as to the type of linebacker he is, man. A speed, physical linebacker. And hopefully he can continue to progress because Darius Leonard is the guy that he doesn't play by traditional standards. So I wonder if Bobby sees him sometimes and tries some of the things he tried and is just not able to do some of the things that Darius do because Darius is so instinctive. Darius is a big play gamble type of guy. He's going to be out of position sometimes. You're going to see his zone get abandoned. Cole Beasley's probably going to catch a ball exactly where Darius Leonard is supposed to be. He's not going to be there. And that may happen 3 or 4 times in the game, but it may be the 5th time that Cole Beasley catches the pass, Darius Leonard punches the ball out, and it's a turnover. It's a big play. And when you got a guy that makes big plays like that, you can live with him, giving up some things here and there.
He had speaking of punch out, he had a really nice punch out in that Jets game on the Thursday night. He's just always making plays. He's got length. He's got speed. He's nasty. He had the play that always stays in my head is that it wasn't a design run, but Josh Allen scrambled in that playoff game, and he tries to shake Leonard, and Leonard just hits him. And he doesn't take him down, but he stands him right up and then holds him up. They blow the whistle, and Leonard is just jawing. I thought, honestly, that was like a changing moment. Leonard stuck him and is just jawing and talking. A couple plays before, he had almost picked off and got a hand on Josh, and he that was the one where he turned it. Diggs ended up dropping it, and Darius Leonard turns around and he looks at Allen and he goes like that, like I just missed it, and I was like, oh, dude, this dude's feeling it. I just don't feel good right now. He's such a stud, and we talked about several of those dudes. They have so many good players. I guess let's shift to the secondary a little bit quickly here.
Do we have to?
I was gonna say, I feel like maybe it's such a weird. I really liked Rock Yassin when he came out. Justin Blackmon looked good last year. To dial it back several years earlier, I thought Malik Hooker was a sweet draft pick, and I thought he was going to be – I didn't think he was going to be the next Ed Reed like so many people wanted him to be. Ed Reed's my favorite player of all time, also a Louisiana guy who went to the U. I know my stuff. Yep. I thought Malik Hooker would be good. They bring in Xavier Rhodes. He's been more bad Xavier Rhodes than good. Kenny Moore is sweet in the slot, I think. But I would say he's probably the shining star. But let's talk about that secondary, especially, considering how relevant it is to a Bills team that even if they're going heavier personnel, they want to go play action. They want to get the ball downfield. They want to throw it around. What does this Colts secondary look like?
Like you said, we could make it short and sweet about Kenny Moore to get him out of the way. Flat out stud. Love his game. Love his technique. Working out the slot. They use him a lot of different ways. They send him on blitz. You'll see him on a couple of blitzes, I'm sure, Sunday, getting after Josh Allen. He plays the run game. We use him to set the edge in the run game in some situations. Lockdown guy out the slot. I love him. I'm going to be excited to see him and Beasley match up and see what can come from that. But let's move on to Rocketson. Rocketson, he has played better this year. What I can say, if you're a firm believer in PFF's grading system, he's the 20th best corner in the NFL. He has a grade of 70.7 this season. He's playing particularly well this season. It's been a struggle for him the last 2 seasons. He has been the most interfered cornerback in the league. When his technique breaks down, he panics and he uses his hands. He reaches out and grabs a receiver. And once he earned a reputation for that. I don't know if you guys know, once you get a reputation in the NFL for a specific thing, they target you. They're going to throw the flag at the least little thing. And Rock had that reputation. I believe he only has 1 defensive pass interference penalty this year. So he's turned the corner as far as the way he's playing. Xavier Rhodes, the roads are open, man. I just all I can say, man. The highway's open, man. Come on down. Whoever you want to line up over there, I'm sure you guys have multiple options. Just line him up over there. I don't know if he's playing. He has a calf injury. He did practice today, though. I saw earlier. I don't know if he's playing. I would much rather them start Isaiah Rodgers, a late round draft pick, a guy who actually flashed in the Buffalo game last year.
Almost had a pick in that end zone, that diving. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You know your stuff. He definitely almost picked off Josh Allen, and that was after Xavier Rhodes suffered an injury and came off of the field. And Isaiah Rodgers was cold, got on the field, and Josh Allen did what Josh Allen should do, the smart thing to do. You test that guy. As soon as he gets off that bench and he comes on the field, you test him. And you test him with one of the best receivers in the NFL, Stephon Diggs. But he almost picked it off. He made an amazing play. And that was kind of the eye-opener for me. Because when he came as a late-round pick, he was a special teams guy. I expected nothing more for him to contribute in special teams. He's not boundary corner size. Our defensive scheme, we like bigger corners, such as Xavier Rhodes. Isaiah Rodgers is a smaller speed guy. But he plays with great technique. We have a new cornerbacks coach, Eric Rowe, who's been successful everywhere he's been so far, and he's developing these guys. It's not a coincidence that we're seeing a young guy like Isaiah Rodgers develop into a starting caliber corner, and Rocketson finally turn the corner. As much as I love Jonathan Gannon, who's now the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, we needed a new face in that DB's room, and they're doing the best they can with that talent. With that said, the matchup still scares me to death. This Bills offense scares me, man. And are we moving to the safeties? Because I have things to say about that.
Let's talk about the safety. Actually, but first I wanted to do that. We get lots of donations and super chats on the show. This one comes from John. He's been donating throughout the show, but he said specifically, this is a donation for an outstanding guest. King of Colts is a gem. And he's an old man, Bills fan that's behind enemy lines, living down there in Miami. But this one was specifically because of how awesome you are. So I wanted to pull that up and give you a clap because you've just been killing it.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that, man. I'm flattered. I am absolutely humbled and honored to be up here, man. Thank you again for that compliment.
Yeah, you are fantastic. And now I'm sad that I got to make you talk about something you don't. So let's talk about the safeties, I guess.
Hey, don't do it. Do we have to?
Just a little bit.
Okay, our 2 starting safeties are out. Okay, they're out. Both of them, they're not playing. One of them is done for the year. Julian Blackman, a guy with tremendous potential. I
So
absolutely
good last year.
so good last year. So good last year. And this year he was finally starting to get back to his last year's form. He was playing really well. And he went down, man. He went down with an injury. Kyrie Willis, our strong safety, is a guy that's good. He's good for what we ask him to do, which is get up there and fit in the run game, muddy it up at the line of scrimmage. From time to time, he can play deep half. If we want to just kind of disguise things and flip it and have him center field, we do that a lot and put Julian up in the box, and Julian messes things up. But those two guys are not here. Who we do have is Josh Jones or Greg Odom and Sendejo.
Oh, I forgot you got. I just feel like Sendejo is so dirty. Every time I think of him, I just think of like helmet to helmet hits and cheap shots from his Vikings days. But continue. I'm sorry.
I can't.
And he's not good in coverage.
He's terrible in coverage. That's what I'm going to get to. And he played 100% of the snaps 2 weeks ago. I didn't get the numbers on the last game, but yes, that's where we're at with it.
That's where you're at.
Yeah, that's where we're at. We did sign Jaleel Adai. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, from the Chargers a couple of years ago. A guy I got to meet because my brother was actually coaching with the Chargers 2 years before he went to the Rams for the last 2 years. Nice. So I got to meet a lot of those guys. And Adai was pretty cool, man. Pretty nice guy. He's actually pretty good, solid to say, in a backup role, a guy that can come in, know his role, know his job, and just get it done. Hopefully he sees the field. Josh Jones wasn't terrible, but the one play that did stand out, he only played about 10% of the snaps, but the one play he was in for was when Agnew took a 66-yard reverse, and Josh Jones took a terrible angle.
I saw it. I saw that on the stat line, but I didn't see the actual play, and I really was like, "Damn, how did Agnew pull that off?" I guess this is how.
Yes, it was a reverse. It was terrible, man. And the whole game it was running. You guys played the Jaguars. The type of offense they run. It's kind of finicky. It's kind of finicky, man. It's really hard to prepare for because it's such like knick-knack, high schoolish college stuff that Urban runs, and it's not very productive, as you can see with the type of output that they have. But it is difficult to prepare for it, and you can get popped if they catch you off guard and you're not prepared for something like that, and that's what happened to us.
And Agnew is crazy fast. He's got really good vertical speed, and also James Robinson was back in that game against you guys. We didn't even have to play. I can't believe we lost to the Jags, and we lost to them without James Robinson. I still can't get over it. But yeah,
James Robinson didn't play against you guys?
No, he did not. Carlos Hyde, right? See, exactly. Yeah.
Carlos Hyde. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde was back there that game. Not great. Now, I mean, the Bills defense did their thing. They only gave up 9, and they only gave up some of that because of this. I don't want to talk about it. This is terrible. I don't want to do it. I'm sorry. You know what? I feel bad. I feel like this is karma now because I made you talk about the safeties. And Devin's out here. He came with that comment talking about that. He said that Agnew play sucked the life out of the Colts.
It did. It really did. And had it been anybody other than the Jacksonville Jaguars, that could have been a play that flipped the game completely. Mm-hmm. But due to the fact it was Jacksonville, I never felt threatened in that game. I'm sorry. But the ironic thing is we haven't beaten Jacksonville in Jacksonville since 2014. And we played. Oh,
that's right. Last year you guys lost in week 1 to them in Jacksonville with Phillip Rivers.
Well, thanks, man.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it like that. I didn't mean it like that. I just was like a click. I'm sorry. We lost there too this year, so it's terrible.
But yeah, man, the safeties they're not good. They're flat not good, and hopefully they turn it around. And I've seen no signs that gives me any type of comfort level going into this game. This is the first game that they're really going to be tested since the injury to both guys. We played the Jets, we played the Jaguars, we play you guys, and we play the Bucks the week after. So it doesn't get any easier. Yeah, it's going to be a brutal stretch for us, but we'll see, man. Hopefully those guys step up to the plate and somebody proves me wrong, and we go from there.
It's a big game for both teams. You just laid it out there for the Colts and them sitting at 5-5, and the games they have coming up, every single game is so important. The Bills sitting there at 6-3, but the Patriots are unfortunately breathing down our necks. We still are trying to catch and then overcome Tennessee for the number 1 seed. And this starts a real difficult stretch with the Colts and then the Saints on Thanksgiving. And then we play the Patriots. And then we've got, Tampa, and then the Patriots. We have to play the Patriots multiple times in this back half. Carolina all of a sudden looks rejuvenated now that Cam Newton scored and is yelling that he's back while he takes off his helmet and does it. Christian McCaffrey's getting healthier. This is a big game.
Quick question. Do you guys have anybody under 500 that you guys got coming up?
We play the Jets again. We play the Falcons. And Carolina's even now. Yeah, I may be forgetting one if somebody wants to throw it in the chat, but no, I think the Jets are the biggest ones that stand out, and the Falcons are the biggest one that stand out from my brain. We already played as of right now, it doesn't look that way. So well, those got to be.
Hopefully we do you guys a favor. We play the Patriots week 15, man. I'll make sure we take it. I'll make sure we take care of that for you.
Make sure. Yeah, this is a hugely important game for both teams, and it's the site of a really good playoff game from last year. And man, you were tremendous on this episode. I knew you were going to be good. I scouted out some stuff with the Blue Stable. Yeah, of course. And I knew you were going to be solid. And you were just getting tons of praise here. And I've had a lot of really good guests on this show. Different guys who podcast for other teams or who write for other teams. I had Nate Tice on from The Athletic. I had Seth Galina on from PFF. Tons of great dudes. And Jason coming in saying fantastic guest. I've never had someone think a guest was so great that they wanted to donate and give her super chat because of it, like John did tonight for you. So Rashaad, you were tremendous in every way, shape, and form. I thank you so much for dropping by tonight. I had a blast. This was awesome. I hope you did too. And, just in case, some people joined in later, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and where they can find you.
Thank you, man. I'm extremely humbled and honored to be here. I was flattered when you reached out, and it was no way I was going to miss this opportunity because I'm a fan of the Cover One Network. So, I definitely had to reach out and support and do anything I can to be a part of this, man. I feel like y'all got something really special going. Y'all growing your fan base. I was there when it first started, and to see where it has, it's reached way past anything I could have expected, man. And I just want to say congratulations to you guys. And thanks, man, for having me up here. Like you say, my name's Rashaad McGinnis. You can follow me on Twitter at King of Colts. The website is www.thebluestable.com. All podcast networks, The Blue Stable. We're there on every major platform there is, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I don't even know if that was okay for me to say on your platform.
No, yeah, say all of it, man. Plug your stuff. Shoot your shot, man.
Yeah, man. Y'all reach out, man. I'm a friendly guy on Twitter. I follow people. I follow everybody. I speak. I interact. I just love to talk great sports, man. And that's all I'm here for. Anybody that want to say anything or want to talk to me about sports, just hit me up, man. I'm available.
Yeah, you were a wealth of knowledge, man. You know the X's and O's, scheme, personnel, tendencies, the player side of it, the holistic team side of it, and the big picture. Yeah, you were a gem, like John mentioned earlier, and a treat. I really appreciate having you on the show. Thank you very much for stopping by. And, maybe we'll just have you back at some point to talk general NFL stuff, or if we see you guys, for sure, if we see you guys in the playoffs again, you will most definitely be back. But who knows? Maybe we'll have you on again as this season starts to go down or off season. There's so much time and so many ways to try and find to create content for episodes. I'm sure our paths will cross again. I look forward to it. You were amazing tonight, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And chat, hold them to those words, man. Those kind of words. And I want to come back one day. So y'all hold them to that.
I'll hold myself to it as well, man. I appreciate you. Take care. If you ever need anything, give me a shout.
All right, man. Thanks, man.
Yes, sir. Man, what a guest and a half again. I want to shout out everybody here in the chat who were just so on it in terms of your questions and your engagement, but just the appreciation for Rashaad, as you guys are for the guests in general here whenever I have somebody on Disguise coverage. That was really awesome to see how effusive in the praise you guys were for Rashaad. And yeah, man, what a guest. He knew anything and everything inside out against or for the Colts. An awesome comment there from Jason. Yeah, easy call to follow him on Twitter now. He's a good follow just in general because of the type of dude that he is. But yeah, he really knows his stuff about football in general, but especially about the Colts. And I thought he was an awesome dude to bring on for this episode. And it's going to be a big game this week. I was going to go into a couple more things, but I think I'm going to save that for some Twitter stuff maybe because we went super long talking about the Colts because Rashaad was just such a wealth of information, and this is such a great episode. And I'm going to pivot a little bit now. I want to talk about Matt Breida and the adaptability of the Bills offense as we start to move down in the last bit of this episode. Dan, I see your question there in the comments. I'm going to get to it. But before I get to that, I want to bring up something. You guys should know. You've already seen it. Where is it? Up here. I'm always so terrible because it's like a mirror. I can never tell. I'm over. There it is. The One Pie Pizza logo. You know why that's there. Because this show is sponsored by One Pie Pizza. Follow them on Twitter at One Pie Pizza, WNY. The menu for One Pie Pizza can be found in the episode description, whether you're watching here on YouTube, whether you are listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms. The online menu can be found there. When you go to One Pie Pizza, mention that Disguise Coverage and Cover One sent you. And from time to time, I like to share stuff. And I want to share this because I'm a generous guy. Just in case you haven't seen it before, look at that deliciousness. Look at the cheese. Look at the pepperoni. That's not a play button there in the center that looks like it. It's one of those little tables that separates the pieces. Look at it. And it's not too greasy. You got a delicious sweet sauce. You got homemade blue cheese. I love being partners with this pizza spot. They are my favorite pizza spot. They are one of the best. I know it can be subjective to people. Go out and get yourself some One Pie Pizza. I shouldn't have put this graphic up because every time I do, I get distracted and then I get hungry and then I kind of like want to stop the pod and go get some pizza. So that's some good stuff. Go check out One Pie Pizza. Get yourself some. Again, the menu is in the show notes of this episode. And I saw that comment and that question from Dan, and it leads in to our next topic of what Matt Breida brings to this Buffalo Bills offense. And so Dan's question here is thoughts on Spencer Brown and Matt Breida. I think Brown needs to start at right tackle and is probably the best run blocker on our team. Breida's speed kills too and could help us on screens and dump offs. I'll start with the Spencer Brown piece. Yes, I've said it here on Disguise Coverage. I said it last night on the film room with Eric Turner. I said it on the post-game show last week. I think I also said it on Twitter. If you'd have told me before this season started that Spencer Brown was a key to this Bills team and was a key for the offensive line, I don't know if I would have believed it, but his athleticism, his physicality, his nastiness, his attitude, his size is tremendously important to this Bills offensive line right now. He is a must start at right tackle. And Cody Ford has been very bad, so kicking Darrell Williams into right guard where Williams has been serviceable, and he's definitely not a complete vulnerability and liability like Cody Ford is. That helps as well. So Spencer Brown is a definite start at right tackle week in and week out. And Matt Breida is a guy I wanted to get into a little bit here. His speed, and it's not just his speed, but speed from the backfield, especially in an offense like the Bills, with the talent that they have on the outside, but the deficiencies they have a bit up front, right? So the Bills offensive line is a middling offensive line. They're not awful. They're not the best. They're not great. They're not terrible. They're just there, right? When you have a back with that much speed and pace like Matt Breida, it makes it easier for your offensive line. If you have a back who can get to the hole faster and get through the hole faster and turn small openings into big gains, and change angles on defenders because of their speed, that is a huge thing for this offense. And Dan, it's like you're peeking into my notes here. So Dan comes back with another comment saying his pull block on the toss crack to the right side Breida touchdown was crazy. He leveled the safety and indirectly made the other DB trip, basically taking out the entire right side of the defense. So he's talking about Spencer Brown there, who had a really nice block out there in space after the crackdown block from Gabriel Davis, and Brown folds around and makes that play out there. Yeah, it was a 2-for-1 block like Devin mentioned. It was awesome. But what's really important, and we broke this play down last night in the film room, Eric Turner and I, there's a chance that the defensive lineman, number 94 for the Jets, he gets very close to Matt Breida. And see, there's the comment there from Charles G saying there's no way Moss or Singletary score on that toss. There's a chance that a defensive lineman for the Jets can make the play, and he gets close. And the reason he doesn't make the play is because Breida hits that next gear and he bursts. He takes that toss, and right when Spencer Brown pancakes his guy, Reggie Gilliam pauses for a minute. He thinks about taking the guy that Stephon Diggs is blocking, and then he also sees the other man outside behind Spencer Brown's guy who's getting destroyed. And you can see Gilliam there think like, okay, this guy's flashing. Do I need to pick him up or should I keep going? He doesn't pick up the guy that Diggs is blocking. The guy gets past Diggs, but it doesn't matter. Diggs got enough of him. Breida makes the play. And then that defensive lineman is coming down, taking a really good pursuit angle, trying to make a play, and he can't get there because Breida is too fast. And Breida hits that next gear. He makes a play out in space. You even see the way the defensive back that Gilliam blocks that Breida cuts back on around the 3-yard line. The reason Breida is able to make that cutback is because that defender takes such a hard angle to the pylon because he thinks Breida's going to get there, and he's threatened by that speed. So Breida's easily just able to put his foot in the ground and cut back and score. Having speed turns 5-yard gains into 9-yard gains, or maybe even touchdowns, or 11-yard gains into 30-yard gains. And I like Motor and I like Moss, but as Charles mentioned here, Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, I don't think they score on that toss play. I don't think they do. Breida's speed was the difference. Yes, Gilliam looked really good out in space. Spencer Brown looked really good out in space. Darrell Williams was downfield making a really good block. Ike Bodker was downfield making a really good block on that play. But Breida's speed is the difference. And speed isn't everything for a running back. You don't have to run a 4.2 or a 4.3 to be a good running back. But having it is better than not having it. And I also think Breida's shiftier and more elusive than people give him credit for. But what he brings to this Bills offense is another layer and another added piece that defenses have to account for, which I've continued to bang the drum for these last several weeks with the threat of the run game. And when you add that speed factor in, whether it's on a pass, whether it's on a run, it's something the defense is threatened by. It's something that they have to account for. They know who's back there. They know the speed of that guy back there. They know that if they don't take a proper angle to the ball, this dude can blow by him in a second, or that even if they take a good angle, his speed is good enough that he can turn a good angle into a poor angle and still get good yardage out of a play. I think Matt Breida does a lot for this offense. He hits the hole faster. He gets through the hole faster. His speed allows for more perimeter runs and allows the Bills to attack the edge better. I also want to mention his awareness. That receiving touchdown on that first play, Stephon Diggs runs a little hitch or a hook on the outside, depending on how you want to phrase it. And Matt Breida runs that swing route, and he sees that it's covered and his route is done, but he doesn't sit there. He continues going up the sideline. He rides that sideline, and he knows as soon as he starts to get some steps on that defensive back, he throws his hands up. He knows he's got him beat, books it to the end zone, and Josh Allen finds him. That's a very heady play. Very good awareness from Matt Breida. I think, and see, this is really good comment here. I see a lot of comments coming in, and I'm going to try and get to all of them as I always do. Michael's comment here is really good. Breida is what he is, and he's not going to become a hidden gem, but he provides a different dimension with his speed that is missing from the rest of the backfield, and that is 1,000% correct. I don't think Matt Breida is all of a sudden going to become the best running back in the NFL, but I think his strengths fit in very nicely for this Bills offense. I don't think it's the missing piece of the puzzle, but I think it fits a pretty decent size hole and a chunk of the puzzle. Again, it's another thing they have to account for. And when you couple that with a dangerous passing attack, with Josh Allen, with Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Manny Sands, Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox, so on and so forth, it's another thing defenses have to account for. And if they pause for a split second to think, is Breida going to leak out here? Do I got to cover him here on this? I don't want to say wasted, but any mental or physical attention towards anything other than Josh Allen in the passing game is a win for the Buffalo Bills. Matt Breida played well. It's unfortunate that he had that one fumble, but I want to see him continue to get burned because I think he adds something to Michael's point that this offense does not have, and he adds a layer that I think they need. And I want to see that continue big time. I want to go to a comment here from Spin saying Breida would also be a hit or miss running back. He may break plays, but he also have more plays that go for nothing where it will put the offense behind on downs. Singletary will consistently get those. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think he's the type of risk taker to the point where he's going to put us behind down in distance because he's trying to press for something that isn't there. Maybe Singletary is more of a model of consistency. But I don't necessarily, I see the hit or miss point, but I don't think he's necessarily the guy that's going to have a negative impact and put the offense behind on downs. Yeah, Dobbs, we talked about this earlier. Dobbs saying now Milano has a hurt shoulder. They need all of their first team LBs down this tough stretch, especially against the Patriots, who we now have to beat or we'll never hear the end of it. Yeah, I really don't want that. Another comment here from Spin. I think you meant to say gains, but 5 or 6 yard gains, helping the offense get in good position on second and third downs. 1,000%. If you can run the ball, right? And we've seen it a lot. We've seen Singletary and Moss where the hole is just there, but they're not fast enough to get there, or the linemen aren't good enough to open that hole and keep it open long enough for the running backs to get through. And we see a glimmer of an alley, and then it closes, and it's all of a sudden 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8. Having a back like Breida can make that turn into 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4. And that's a win as you continue to matriculate the ball downfield, as the old John Madden liked to say. What else? Michael should have known. Always talk any excuse to talk about the trenches, man. You're all over it. And I wanted to mention it last night to you. Obviously, I know you're watching now. I was going to comment in the Cover One Slack channel that is part of the premium membership that we offer when you join Cover One Premium, which you all should do. Access to in-game breakdowns, access to the Cover One Slack channel with myself and all the other content creators. And a variety of different topics and subsections that we break down in the Slack channel. You get so many things. The link for the Cover One Premium subscription can be found in the show notes of this episode on both podcasting platforms and YouTube. But Michael, I wanted to mention that. Wasn't planned, but I was going to message you last night in the Slack channel. You were so good last night in the film room. So many of the comments that you were given in the chat were really spot on, really well said, really well thought out. So good job to you last night, and also good job to you tonight again. But another good comment, good things happen when they get Morse, Brown, Dawkins leading out on the edge, and Breida's speed takes those plays to the next level. Yes. Mitch Morse is so good pulling. He's so good on those fold blocks. He's so good out in space. Spencer Brown, so good out in space because of his athleticism. Dawkins has a bit of that as well. But the Bills have been a heavy zone team the last several years and coming into this year as well so far. And I think a lot of that is because zone is the safer scheme. It's easier to account for the unknown when you run a zone scheme because you're blocking an area versus the gap scheme where you're blocking specific guys and trying to open specific holes, right? So you don't get to see these guys out in space like Morse and Spencer Brown when you're running more zone scheme. You don't get to see guys, be able to pull and do something when a receiver cracks down and get the opportunity to shine. And of course, Michael said, thanks, Ant. Love Cover One. Love you too, Michael. You're fantastic. It was awesome being able to watch stuff live and in person with you at those open practices. The Bills have some guys up front who can do some things, but they're limited given the offensive line composition as a whole. Breida starts to open up some of those doors. I think he is a key piece, not the piece, but I think he's a key piece going forward. I'm okay rolling with 3 running backs on game day. I still like Zach Moss. I still like Singletary. But I think Breida's speed, it's too much to not be included into this offense, both from a passing standpoint and the screen game, jet sweep opportunities, and just from general tosses, outside zone, maybe even a little inside zone, maybe even a little duo if we want to run that. Maybe even you work some trap in there, and all of a sudden, because you get a guy who can hit the hole in the blink of an eye, opens up a lot of possibilities. I think he needs to be included going forward. When I start to talk about the next topic here, as we start to wind down here, the importance of adaptability. This one isn't too crazy or too in-depth of a topic. Before I do that, I want to get to this question. Question from Devin. Do you think Jonathan Taylor runs for 100 yards on Sunday? Actually, before that, sorry, scatterbrain. Awesome plug from Michael. Cover One Slack channel is great. The best place for Bills coverage, conversations, and general shenanigans. There are a lot of general shenanigans. Well done, Michael. I appreciate you for that. Yeah, it's awesome. Again, that Cover One Premium subscription membership, $39.99 for the whole year. I'm not just saying it because I'm biased or because I work for Cover One. It's awesome. You can find that in the episode description here. Back to Devin's question. Do I think Jonathan Taylor runs for 100 yards on Sunday? If he doesn't, I think he gets really close. I think he hits like 80 or 90. I'm going to say yes. I think Jonathan Taylor runs for 100 yards. I just want to continue to see especially now with what the injuries look like. Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano is now banged up. I want to make sure Starr is going to play. I'm a little worried about Jonathan Taylor. Also, just from a pure execution standpoint, the Colts are really good at running the ball. They're multiple and they're versatile. Oh, comment there from Devin. The Colts are undefeated when he runs for 100 yards. Well, that sucks then. Good stat there. As I mentioned earlier, yeah, Taylor, gotta go to my notes there. 99 zone runs, 57 gap. That's a really good balance and a really good ratio in today's NFL where a majority of teams are zone running scheme offenses. The fact that they do both of those things with Jonathan Taylor and he can run both of those things and the offensive line can block both of those things, it's problematic. The Bills have been gouged a little bit in the run here and there. And again, I know they're solid. They're third in rushing defensive DVOA. They're a good squad defensively. The Bills are very good. I think Taylor will get his. I think they limit Carson Wentz in the passing game, which is my hope. And that's how they combine that for a winning formula. But I think Taylor will get his, even just off the aspect of, I don't know if it's a consistent, like he's consistently busting out like 6 yards, 8 yards, 5 yards, 12 yards. I think it could be Derrick Henry like, where he's got like his first 9 carries are for like 25 yards, and then all of a sudden he breaks like a 30-yarder or a 40-yarder because he's a monster and a beast back there. But yeah, I think Taylor hits 100 yards on Sunday, which definitely hurts. So the importance of adaptability. We talked about it a bit on the film room last night, and I just wanted to talk about it here in this episode. What the Bills did against the New York Jets was tremendous. What they did to force the Jets' hand and get back to their style of offense. And forgive me as I'm looking down here because I'm trying to find my tweet on Twitter that I put out last night with what the Bills did. Thank you. So weeks 1 through 9. So last week was obviously week 10, but weeks 1 through 9, Josh Allen had 352 dropbacks, and he saw 2 high coverages on 122 of those 352 dropbacks, which is the third most in the NFL. So roughly 34.6 of his dropbacks, he saw 2 high coverages. In week 10 against the Jets, Josh Allen had 31 dropbacks, and he saw 2 high coverages on only 3 of those snaps, which is roughly 9.6%. The Bills dictated to the Jets with their use of personnel and formations last week. They went heavy. They went with Ryan Bates as an extra lineman. They wanted the Jets to come down and crowd the box. They wanted them to bring a safety down in the box. They wanted to see single high coverage. And boom, as Michael says, and I know the comment was mentioned earlier by Aiken Atten. I don't really know how to pronounce that. But yeah, having Josh under center helps out due to the number of options presented as opposed to the delay shotgun handoff. And then Michael echoing similar sentiments here. Yep, having Josh more under center, more motion, condensed sets all help the offense get back to it. They ran condensed formations. They got Gabriel Davis more involved to block. They went with 2 tight ends or 2 running backs. They went with Ryan Bates as an extra offensive lineman. They did things that made the Jets have to bring a safety up. They made the Jets go single high based on their alignment and personnel. And then what they did was they ran the ball some, but they attacked with play action or just passes in general because they got one-on-one opportunities on the outside. Jay Feely in the film room talked about it last night. They had Diggs one-on-one so much, whether in man or zone, where they could have just kept going to Diggs over and over again, which we saw a little bit in that game, especially down in the red zone. And it's nothing that's too elaborate or too crazy, but it was very important to see what the Bills did against the Jets. And I know it was the Jets, but the importance of it going forward is the Bills did not look good against the Jags. They've been seeing a lot of 2 high coverages all year, and they've been struggling against those 2 high coverages. And struggling is relative. I mean, you see the point differentials and how many points per game they're putting up. They're second in points per game at 31.1. But I think we can all agree that some points and opportunities have been left on the table, whether in the red zone or as a whole. The Bills haven't been as efficient this year as they were last year necessarily, at least to the eye test and by some metrics. And I think a lot of that has to do with the 2 high coverages, both pre-snap and a 2 high shell and post-snap that you're seeing as well. And so what do the Bills do? Well, no, forget that. We want you to go single high. Well, we don't really have the threat of a running game, so defenses are going to stay in 2 high. So how do we make them go single? Let's go heavy personnel. Let's go condensed formations. Let's go 21. Let's go 12. Let's bring in an offensive lineman. Let's go strong eye. Let's go eye. All these opportunities. Let's put Josh Allen under center. All these things. And yes, Michael, it also does help that the Jets refuse to play cover 2. Looking forward to seeing if it'll help to get teams out of their too high looks throughout the rest of the season. That's what I'm very interested to see in this game coming up against the Colts. As Rashaad mentioned, the Colts love cover 3. The majority of their coverage snaps have been in cover 3 this year. 82 of their coverage snaps, 82 of their 312 coverage snaps have been in cover 3. 51 have been in cover 1. So they are primarily a single high team, as Rashaad mentioned. So that plays into the Bills' hand a little bit. But given that the Colts are successful with that and can be aggressive with that, we'll see what it comes down to. But I'm very interested to see what that game last week for the Bills means for the sustainability going forward in terms of showing that they can counter, they can adjust, because that's what's going to be down the stretch. You have to be multiple. You have to be varied. You have to be adaptable. You have to be able to win in a variety of ways because you're going to play different opponents who are good at different things, who are bad at different things, and who do different things to counter what they're good and bad at and what you're good and bad at. That's how you win a Super Bowl. Sometimes you win it with the run. Sometimes you win it with the pass. Sometimes it's offense. Sometimes it's defense. Sometimes it's coverage. Sometimes it's blitz. Sometimes it's vertical passes. Sometimes it's horizontal and quick game. You got to be able to do a bunch of it and be able to flex that muscle when it's needed. Seeing that the Bills could flex that muscle against the Jets and force a team to play into their hands, very encouraging. And I liked it a lot. And I'm very, very encouraged to see what it means going forward. And as William Swan says here, adaptability made the Bills the most dangerous offense in the league. I don't necessarily disagree with you. When they're on and they're able to continue to adapt and stay multiple, it's hard to disagree with that. That's going to bring us to a close here on Disguise Coverage. Major thanks to Mr. Rashaad McGinnis for being here on the show. We initially planned like 30, 40 minutes, but the conversation was so great. We just kept rolling. He was awesome. Go check him out at King of Colts on Twitter. Check out the Blue Stable, really good Colts podcast that he's featured on. They know their stuff. Check out the website he mentioned as well. Thank you to you guys for riding with me live in this episode. The chat was super engaging. I wish we could continue. I don't want to run too much into the Cover 1 show with Greg and Aaron that's starting in 22 minutes, so I want to get you guys over there for that. But otherwise, I'd love to just sit and continue to do the chat all night. You guys were great and engaging as always. Thank you for anybody who donated the super chat. Thank you to anybody for your comments, questions, thoughts, concerns in general. Thank you so much for riding with me live. If you're not riding with me live and you're watching this or listening to this later, that's cool too. Thank you so much for your view. Thanks for your listen, anything and everything. Please, whether you're here live now or listening or watching later, please rate and review and subscribe to Disguise Coverage and to Cover 1. Please drop a like. All that stuff is tremendous in terms of helping us to chart and track and trend in front of more ears and out there for more eyes and all that kind of stuff. Check out One Pie Pizza. Thank you very much to everybody. I wish I could keep going down all the stuff. Everybody's saying really positive stuff in the chat. I appreciate you guys giving me praise and to Cover 1 in general. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys more than you will ever know. Thank you so much. Get yourself a Gatorade or some water or something. Come back around in 21 minutes for the Cover 1 Buffalo show with Greg and Aaron. They have a tremendous guest on tonight's show in Zach Hicks, another Colts insider with a different perspective. So that's an awesome thing to see. And I'll be with Greg and Aaron on the Cover 1 post-game show this upcoming Sunday after the Indianapolis game. Hopefully things work out well for the Bills. Feel free to get at me on Twitter at pro__ant. That's pro 2_ANT. I'm going to be putting out a lot more metrics and different conversation pieces on Twitter starting tonight and as we go forward to the game as I always do. And again, thank you guys so much for being here, listening, watching, commenting live, later, anything. Thank you so much to Rashaad McGinnis. Give him a follow. He was awesome. I appreciate you guys. I hope you and your family and friends and loved ones all stay safe and are doing well. Go Bills. And I will see you Sunday for the post game, and then I'll see you next week for Disguise Coverage.